Well, hello, everyone. My name is John Brenneman, and I'm the president here at MOAA Vacations. I'm joined today by Chris with Uniworld Boutique River Cruises. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping things. We are recording this webinar, so we will email everyone a link to it. So if during the course of this presentation, you hear something that you want to revisit, we did start right at the top of the hour. So if you just make a quick note to what time it was, then you should be able to fast forward right to that portion and review that as well. I'm going to talk real quick a little bit about MOAA Vacations and about group departures for MOAA members. Then I'm going to turn it over to Chris. Chris is going to talk about Uniworld for those of you who have not sailed on them previously. And then we're actually going to go through 4 groups that we have set up for 2025 and 2026. So, Chris, if you pop forward one slide, I always like to start out when I talk about MOAA Vacations, the 4 things that make us unique. The first thing we always talk about is our concierge level of service. For those of you who've been in a webinar before, I know you've heard me say this many times, but we are and we continue to be the only travel agency in the country that does travel on a satisfaction guaranteed basis. And that means exactly what it says. If you have an issue, a concern, a problem, either before or during your cruise, you reach out to us and we resolve that to your satisfaction. We're able to do that because of the relationships we have with people like Chris and companies like Uniworld to get that taken care of quickly. For those of you who've ever had a problem before, kind of the industry standard for problem resolution is 6 to 8 weeks. We try to get it resolved to your satisfaction within 48 hours. So, and one other thing I always like to talk about this, if you do have an issue, a concern, or a problem, in almost the vast majority of cases, you'll talk to me directly. About 95% of the time, I'll actually help you get that resolved. There are some times when I'm unavailable, and then Mike Tyrell, our vice president, will help you. So you go immediately straight to the top, and we're here to help you. We do have the guaranteed lowest price. We actually used to only have 3 bullet points because I used to think that lowest price was included with satisfaction guarantee because no one would be satisfied if they paid too much, but people wanted to hear us say it. So we now separate out as a separate bullet and say we do guarantee the lowest price. We do have a MOAA exclusive amenity program. Uniworld does participate. This is value-added savings or amenities, which actually adds value to what already is the lowest price. Uniworld's unique in the fact that when we started out, we are offering a $100 per person onboard credit as the MOAA exclusive amenity. That would apply to any Uniworld sailing, any itinerary, any departure date. Chris is going to talk about this in a little bit, and if those of you who've sailed on Uniworld before know that it is a very all-inclusive product. And what we heard from some members was the fact that they had this $100 onboard credit, and they really wasn't that much that they needed to spend it on, since all the excursions are included, the tips are included, the beverages are included, in those types of things. So we are making a switch to this in 2025. So if you book a 2024 cruise, you will receive a $100 per person onboard credit. Starting in 2025, that is going to change to a $100 per person additional discount. So it's the same amount of savings or value, I guess I would say. But for those of you who have sailed on Uniworld and say, man, everything's included, what am I supposed to spend this $200 on? That will no longer be an issue. And then one of the main things we're going to talk about today, as I mentioned, Chris is going to go through these in a lot more detail, but we're going to talk about our group opportunities. We do have 4 groups that we're going to talk about today. 2 of them are just groups where we've held space for MOAA members, so you can travel and you have the camaraderie of traveling with the MOAA group. There is a savings involved. And I will say on the groups that we offer, we actually offer both now. So there is both a discount and the onboard credit. So when we talk about these groups in 2025 and 2026, you'll see the discounted pricing, and they all have that $100 shipboard credit as well. So the groups have basically both of those. So real quick, 2 of them, as I mentioned, are signature groups. So this slide here kind of goes through what makes, no, the next slide's correct. What makes the signature groups different than a standard group? And the first thing we always talk about, and the way I kind of look at the signature groups is they're sort of a standard group on steroids. So you get everything that you would receive in a standard group. As I mentioned, there's the discount in the pricing. There's the onboard credit, obviously the camaraderie of traveling with your fellow MOA members and everything. But the signature groups have extra. And the first thing we always talk about is the fact that on signature groups, they will be hosted by MOA leadership and staff. They are there to ensure that you have a stress-free vacation. We do have exclusive onboard events and excursions in some instances on the signature groups. For sure, we will have a welcome reception and a farewell reception. And then a lot of time we have other events during the time you're on the cruise as well. It says family and friends invited. This actually would apply to anything we do at MOA Vacations. So if you've never booked with us before, our goal is to make sure you have the most enjoyable, the most fun vacation possible. So if your vacation would be more fun if you brought your family, be that, kids, grandkids, siblings, if you brought your neighbors, if you brought your friends, whomever you wanted to bring along, they are invited to come with you. If you're doing, your own little kind of trip together, or if you're on a MOA group or a signature group, family and friends are invited. In fact, I don't think we've ever done a signature group without having friends and family along. So not only can you bring them, but it's important to note that as a MOA member, everyone that travels with you, all your friends, all your family, your cabin mate, will receive everything we offer MOA members. So they have the same satisfaction guarantee, the guaranteed lowest price, the amenity program, all of that would apply to anyone you bring with you. And then there are rare opportunities. While we, in a typical year, will have probably close to 200 groups that we set up for MOA. We were only doing 2 a year. We did 3 in 2024, and it looks like we're going to do 3 again in 2025 and 2026. So there's only 3 signature groups a year. So they are rare opportunities, but they are without a doubt the most popular, the highest rated trips that we do. I talk about the camaraderie. The other thing that we've seen on these signature groups is you're going to go on a ship and everyone on that ship is going to be a MOA member or a MOA guest. And you will notice the courtesy and respect that everyone has for their fellow passengers. If you've traveled a lot, you're probably aware that there's always been this, you've had a vacation or vacations where you've traveled with people who were not, let's just say, the most fun people to travel with. With these MOA signature groups where we have the entire ship, it is unbelievable. Just the attitude of everyone on board. It's difficult to describe, but if you've ever been on one of these, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So real quick, here's the 4 groups we're going to talk about today. The Burgundy Provence in 2025 is a signature group. So once again, everything we just talked about, the MOA leadership on board and all that other would apply to this sailing. Splendors of Egypt and Nile is just a group. Castles Along the Rhine is just a group. So everything that Chris is going to talk about that Uniworld offers will apply to all of these. And then Highlights of Eastern Europe is also a signature group. And we'll actually, when we turn it over to Chris, we're going to talk about those 2 signature groups, the Highlights of Eastern Europe and Burgundy and Provence first. For those of you who've seen any of our signature groups before, this next slide is a screenshot of a website. For all of the websites we've just talked about, we have websites set up with the same basic 7 tabs for all of them, which is a homepage. Pricing and accommodations is going to kind of go through the price for all the different cabin categories. There is a ship deck plan, and then there is a image and a description of all the different suites and staterooms on that ship. We are going to kind of go over the day-to-day itinerary on all of these today, but on all of these groups, there is a tab where it goes through the itinerary day by day, a tab for inclusions, a tab for terms and conditions, and then there is a tab that you can click, which will take you to a form that you complete when you're ready to sign up for this trip. As I mentioned, we have a website for all four of these. Some of you who signed up for this webinar based on an email invitation you sent know that that invitation already had a link to all four of these websites. I mentioned that we're recording this, and we're going to send you a link. In that email you'll receive later on this evening that has a link to this webinar. It will include links to all four of the groups that we're going to talk about. So you'll have the webinar you can go back and reference, as well as these websites where all this information is. And of course, you can always call us or email us if you have any questions. We are going to do a Q&A at the end of this presentation, so you have an opportunity to answer questions today. But a lot of times you'll think of questions later on, either later on today or tomorrow or in the next week or so. As those questions come up, feel free to give us a call, give us an email. We have full-time professional cruise consultants that are here solely to answer your questions. And one last thing I want to say, we talked about sharing or inviting friends and family. Feel free to share with them not only the webinar, but the websites as well. As long as you are going, they can go. That's really the only stipulation we have. MOAA member can bring as many friends and family as they want, but these sailings are shut down to the general public. So if your friends and family want to go, they need to book with you on that. So that is briefly kind of the overview on MOAA and the signature groups. I'm now going to turn it over to Chris, and Chris is going to talk about Uniworld. Is going to talk about all four of these groups. I'm going to shut off my camera and mute myself because I'm going to hop on the Q&A. If you take your mouse or your cursor to the bottom of your screen you're watching on this, there should be a little pop-up menu. You'll see a couple of conversation bubbles that say Q&A. Just type your questions in there. I will be answering questions during Chris's presentation, but if it's something that I think everyone will be interested in learning more about, I may actually answer it during Chris's presentation, but I will circle back around to it, and Chris and I will answer that question for everyone in attendance. So without any further ado, Chris, tell us more about Uniworld.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. Again, my name is Christopher Mastrada. I'm the Strategic Account Manager for Uniworld Boutique River Cruises. And I'm here to tell you today a little bit about who we are, what we do, and have you guys fall in love with some of the trips and itineraries that MOAA picked out for you. So, Uniworld Boutique River Cruises. We're actually a drop in the bucket to a bigger brand called the Travel Corporation, and we were inspired by Red Carnation Hotels. And that's an extremely important component because that's who we are at the core, and we were inspired to be a floating palace, a floating boutique hotel. So we are not mass market. We are that floating little palace. We're a small fleet of 18, and we're the epitome of luxury. So we're not the only river ship on these rivers, but we are simply the best. And I will explain.
Welcome.
Get into it. So why Uniworld? So we are the most all-inclusive river ship on the river. And what I mean by all-inclusive is I don't want you to get scared by that word. I really don't like that word myself, because I think that, especially being from the Northeast, sometimes it can allude to, a low-class all-inclusive resort with watered-down marinara sauce, diluted alcohol. Simply not that. What it is, it means everything is included stateside. That way you leave with memories, not a tab. So it makes your vacation absolutely seamless. Leave the wallet in the room, and basically the only price you have to pay is if you want some souvenirs and some little additionals here. We are known for our service, our award-winning ships, our farm-to-table dining, as well as the experiences such as excursions in these beautiful countries. So, what are these amenities that differentiate us from us and the other river ships? My favorite, the most premium alcohol. So we have the Johnny Walkers, Grey Goose, all included, top shelf liquor. We also have a sommelier on all of our sailings that really elevate the experience, talking about regional wines and wine pairing with all your meals. With liquor being included, sometimes that could be the make or break between us and a different river ship, especially when it comes to pricing. People can say, we don't drink that much. Trust me, when you're on vacation, you want to enjoy it. And if you have a few glasses of wine, it all adds up. So not to worry, there's no complicated cocktail hours or only a beer and wine with dinner. If you're up, you can have a drink. It's your vacation. Dining. Especially being from the Northeast, we hear about complaints about food and service, but not with Uniworld. That's the two most things in the travel industry that we hear complaints about. But it makes my life easier, especially with Uniworld, because our meals are absolutely phenomenal. Everything is farm to table, and we like to joke around at Uniworld saying you'll never see a Cisco truck back into a Uniworld ship. It's all your local farmers, all local provisions. So they're bringing on local produce, milk, wines, right onto the ship by hand. So everything is locally sourced within 35 kilometers of the ship. So it really has that regional feeling pouring itself on board. And we can accommodate any type of dietary restrictions, whether that's gluten-free, celiac, you name it, or you simply just want to eat clean because you have a fitness show coming up. It's your world and it's your vacation. We want to make that seamless for you. So any allergy can be accommodated with our culinary concierge, as well as what does ordering look like? Sometimes people are very simple and sometimes people are very complicated. So with our menu, when you open it up, it has a regional inspired. For example, if you're in France or Amsterdam, it's going to have those regionally inspired meals that the chef has carefully designed. Or you could simply resort to chicken, steak, or fish with a loaded baked potato. So the world is your oyster, pun intended. So also what's included with Uniworld is your transfers, the day of embarkation and disembarkation. So how does this work? When you land, an example for Amsterdam, there's going to be a Uniworld sign with a transfer that is going to take you to and from the ship. And also if you do it via extensions with MOAA, so if you want to go into the destination a few days early, a few days later, your transfers will be included as well. So not to worry, you're in good hands getting to and from the ship. And this works well too in case if due to high and low waters, if they have to go to a different port down the road, which can often happen, you're in good hands versus you getting a taxi. So that's all included. Gratuities, no big fat ATM withdrawal before your travels. All the gratuities on board are included. Where they're not included is if, for example, if you're on a excursion and you are very impressed with your tour guide, you're more than welcome to throw your whatever the currency is to your tour guide, but it's all at your courtesy. Excursions. This is an extremely fun and awesome part of our journey. So with our excursions, we include all the excursions. So not to worry, you don't have to worry about booking ahead of time, have MOAA organize them for you. Everything is done on the ship. So a lot of other river ships, when picking excursions, they simply just include, the local walking tour. This is your local church, this is the police station. Not with Uniworld. We've included things like hiking, truffle hunting, kayaking, you name it. We have a very active clientele. And how does this process work with including excursions? So with the excursions, you're going to have a port talk the night before and be welcomed with alcohol and little nibbles. And the cruise manager is going to go over the destination, the do's and don'ts, and you can simply just circle which excursion you would like to do the following day. Now, getting back to what was previously stated about having some onboard credit, we do have a master list of excursions. that come at an additional fee, like very extraordinary things, but you simply don't have to do them because you have a fine time with the included excursions. However, for an additional cost, there are some sprinkled throughout all the itineraries and groups that were picked out for you guys that we're going to go over today, which I'll go over well. It's called a master list of excursions. We have onboard Wi-Fi all included, especially if you want to work from home. We have wellness opportunities on board. So we also have spas, as well as morning yoga, stretching. So with those wellness coaches on board and on site, as well as fitness centers, you can book a private fitness appointment if you would like. And especially weather permitted, you're more than welcome to do, if the circumstances allow, morning yoga, sunrise in Prague, which is unforgettable. Onboard entertainment. This is another important thing. We're on vacation. We don't want to go to bed at 8:30. We want to take advantage of that premium alcohol and be with like-minded people, right? So with that, River tends to have the stereotype that could be a little bit slower, a dimmed down demographic, simply not at Uniworld. And we take full, since that was the stereotype, we definitely listened. So we revamped all our music on board. We went from Beethoven to Bee Gees. We've turned our lounge into an 80s sailing. I'm sorry, an 80s party on all of our sailings. So you get to experience that on one of the nights. And we have all local entertainment. So whether it's a cultural display, a singer, or a local band, it's a jam-packed day well into the night. So you're going to enjoy yourselves. So put on those, pack those dancing pants. We also have with our suite service, we have our butler, and they like to say, once you go butler, you never go back. They're trained in packing, unpacking, steaming, whatever you need them to do. And this is for our suite categories on board. For those of you who may have too much to drink at the 80s party, you're more than welcome to put on a robe and experience our 24-hour room service. This is a fine example. So you can look over the river on your French balcony with a nice hot cup of coffee and 24-hour room service. So ain't nothing better than that. So with the in-room pamper. So where are we going to go? So let's get into some of our itineraries. So first, we're going to go over the highlights of Eastern Europe. I'm going to shut off my camera so you guys can focus on the slides. So highlights of Eastern Europe is one of our most popular itineraries. And let's get into it. Oops. So our highlights of Eastern Europe. So with the transfers, your first day is going to be in Budapest. So whatever your flight time is, there's no specific time that the ship is going to leave. It's going to be most likely docked overnight. And it's a really good transition day. So, drop off your luggage, get settled to your room, and check in. So that second day is going to be a full day in Budapest as well. You have the options with the excursions of the panoramic highlights with the synagogue visit, as well as the Budapest communist tour. Did it again. This guy's going to mind of its own. Day 3, you're going to sail to Batina, and you're going to have the option between going to the Cultural Museum and lunch at a family restaurant, or the Cultural Museum and a home-based hosted lunch. So that's both in the AM. So sometimes you'll have multiple sailings in the day, depending on what the port allows. And I just want to say this, a lot of this are subject to change due to rising tides and lowing tides. For the most part, these are your target ports. Oops. I apologize. So day 4 is going to be sailing to Belgrade with your choice of a Belgrade city tour and a visit to the royal grounds. And we have our Let's Go activity where you're going to do a bike Belgrade tour. And with this activity on this day, you're going to have a nights out. Now, what our nights out are is a private musical ceremony. For example, when I went to Austria, I had a private Mozart concert. But for you guys going on highlights of Eastern Europe, you're going to have a Serbian National Museum and concert. That's going to be a night out. So they're going to shuttle you from the port to the venue, and it's exclusively for Uniworld clients. So it's usually around 100 of you that go out, and you're welcomed with champagne. Everyone's dressed nicely. It really is a really nice way to experience that local music. The next day, on day 5, you have the option to go to the Gold Pack Castle in the morning. And I believe you're going to do 2 ports that day. So, which is nice. That's another example of doing 2 ports in one day, if the tides allow. Day 6, you're going to go to Vidin with a choice of the Red Rock Valley and the Dulce Amos Wine Estate and tasting. Day 7, in Rus, you have the choice of the Bulgarian lunch or the Rus walking tour and the monasteries. And that's going to be your farewell dinner. Day 8, you're going to be disembarking. And that is going to include your transfer as well. So from Bucharest. Well, I'm sorry, that was going to be day 9, disembarking. So with these itineraries, you're more than welcome through MOAA to have land extensions as well. So pre and post. So since you're overseas, why not make the most of it? These are some of the highlights. So Budapest, the panoramic highlights, your nights out with the Serbian National, and Bucharest with the Communist tour and the People's Palace. I do believe I have a video. Well, actually, I have a video for Burgundy Provence. So next, we're going to go to the south of France. So the south of France is definitely something that people, once they go, they want to keep going back in terms of how delicious the wines are, especially they take you to a lot of organic vineyards, and it really is the creme de la creme. So with Burgundy Provence, you're going to land in Aries. So you're going to depart from Aries, and you're going to land in the Marseille International Airport. They're going to take you to and from the port. And let's have a nice little overview. All right. This is the Burgundy and Provence itinerary. So continuing on with Arles, Abington. So with day 3, you have the optional walking tour with the Palace of the Popes and the Aqueduct Village visit. Day 4, you have another optional village day, and they have a masterpiece excursion option for the truffle farming village. So that's awesome. And for day 3, you have the option excursions for that masterpiece collection of a cooking lesson, kayaking, and even a chateau with wine tasting. So there's definitely a lucrative opportunity for excursions on this itinerary. Day 5, later going into Lyon that night, you have the choice of heritage and the Twin Villages stroll and wine tasting, and a Let's Go activity with the vineyards hike and wine tasting. And they have a premium wine tasting at the Heritage Hill for an additional cost. And then day 7, you're going to leave from, day 8. So they have the overnights. So a lot of times you're sailing at night if the tides allow. So they do take full advantage of you sailing during the day to take in the views. We call it scenic sailing. So your captain's going to take every opportunity to do so. And with a lot of the excursions, it has the opportunity to bring you back to the ship. That way you can take advantage of lunch on the ship, which is nice. And then you can, you're welcomed with a nice lemon scented towel, and you're fresh enough to even go back out there and experience more excursions. Again, you can do as many excursions as you want. And as you can see, whether I'm reading or in the videos, depending on the actual dates of your group, sometimes it's just the itineraries reversed. So same ports, just reversed. So not to get too confused. So here are some of those trip highlights: the walking tour, the village day, and the other walking tour. So as you can see with a lot of these towns, it really is the nooks and crannies and not those big major cities, especially in France. You really get to experience it like a local. And that's one of the great opportunities of river cruising. You get to go into these nooks and crannies of the country and experience it like a local. It's definitely something different kind of vacation. Now, I would say our most booked trip and great for first-time river cruisers is our castles along the Rhine. And exactly how it sounds, castles along the Rhine. It's definitely worth the scenic sailing. So I would definitely make sure that French balcony door is open for the majority of your scenic sailing and have a nice glass of wine. So castles along the Rhine. So with your day one, you're going to be arriving in Amsterdam, which is awesome. You're very short distance from the airport, so it's a good time to walk around the town, and especially you can leave your luggage at the ship. Sometimes the ship is in turnover, so they may not be able to check in you right away, but lunch is always open, and you're more than welcome to they take your luggage for you, and then you can go out and experience this city. So with day 2 in Cologne, you have the Cologne walking tour as an activity. Day 3, you have another walking tour and a Let's Go bike experience along the Rhine, as well as a choice of the Marksburg Castle visit and the Four Lakes cable car. Day 4, you have the choice of Castle Villard's wine tasting and a Let's Go vineyard hike. So definitely a more active sailing. Day 5, you have the Secret Garden and collections in the morning. We have the Formula One racetrack and the MTM experience, which is a private vinegar estate tasting. I'm actually supposed to do this in February. And you have an optional masterpiece collection of a authentic country cooking with vinegar experience. Day 6, with Strasbourg Panoramic, you have the option of the Strasbourg Panoramic tour with Cathedral and Old Town walking tour. And you have the option of the Black Forest, which is natural beauty and living history. That's absolutely amazing. And then there's a village tour on day 7. And then day 8 will be disembarkation from Switzerland. So with that tour, with that sailing is actually one of our newer ships, the SS Elizabeth, which has larger suites. That's definitely something to consider, especially if you want to consider triple occupancy, if you're bringing children. We do offer ages 4 and up. So this is a good option for multi-generational, especially with larger suites. We have connecting rooms on this ship. So that's definitely something that you want to consider. It's also very scenic for with the castles. I think a lot of multi-generational families really target this itinerary due to how scenic and exciting it is for children of all ages. Although it has a more modern decor, it's still that Uniworld brand, Uniworld love, Uniworld food, and Uniworld staff. Here are some of those highlights I touched base on. I've heard excellent things about the vinegar tour. So now we're going to head over to the Mediterranean, to the top of Africa, and we are going to go to the Splendors of Egypt. We actually have the nicest ships on the Nile, so that's something to consider. So getting into Cairo, you have the option of a pre-cruise, so a pre-night. So if you're hopping from, the US, we do offer pre-night stays, so you do not have to arrive the same day as the sailing's embarkation. And we could, with the pre-night stay, we still offer the transfers included as well. With day 2, we have a part of the masterpiece collection. We have a night tour of the bazaar, but what's included is the mosque and the Egyptian museum. Day 3, you're going to fly to Luxor, and that's going to be your embarkation day, as well as going to go visit the temple. Day 4, you're going to visit 2 temples as well, an AM and PM. Day 5, you're going to go to the Valley of the Kings, and then we also have the Masterpiece Collection option, which is the Valley of the Queens. Day 6 is another temple as well. As also offered is the Life of the Nile tour by motorboat, as well as a Masterpiece Collection that's offered is the dune surfing and swimming on the Nile. I actually did the dune surfing, and it was absolutely awesome. It's remarkable. I highly recommend. Day 7, you have another temple as well, as far as another additional boat ride and sunset tea along the Nile at the Hotel Aswan, and the Masterpiece Collection of a sound and a light show, which is awesome. Day 8, cruising the Nile River, as well as a Masterpiece Collection option of the temples of Abu and Sibel. Day 9, you have cruising along the Nile as well in the morning. So a lot of these cruising is, again, that's that day scenic cruising, which is very nice. And then day 10 is when you're going to be your disembarkation day. And you're going to fly back to Cairo, and then offers Masterpiece Collections that night in Cairo, which is the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, and a night at the bazaar as well, and so on. Here are some of those trips highlights. And again, sailing with Uniworld, these are a lot of exclusive experience. You're only going to be with Uniworld guests as well. And the groups are not going to be, one tour guide for 60 people. It's going to be all broken down between, 6 to 12 people. That way you can really enjoy and take in the experience, try and avoid the crowd as much as possible, ask as many questions as you would like, and really take in the sights and sounds of the destination, which is really nice. On all my Uniworld sailings, we're usually the first people there. It gives a great opportunity for photos and to really take in the landmarks. So for those of you who have been with Uniworld, sailed with Uniworlds before, we do offer our Heritage Club program where you offer savings and a discount, which is nice. We definitely want to welcome you back the right way. So that's something that MOAA can log in for you. So that way you can experience savings and be rewarded. But that's your 4 itineraries. Again, these are all on the Uniworld website. They are a little bit complicated names for some of the cities because there are so many, but I truly want to thank you guys for letting me speak on the 4 itineraries today. I will say that we have a 70% return rate in terms of clients coming on Uniworld and experiencing the absolute best. So I know you're going to have a great time. It's just a matter of what itinerary is best for you. So with that, I'll take any questions. I'll answer the best of my ability.
There you go. All righty. As typically happens, we did get the first 2 questions we received were about solo travel, single supplements, and those types of things. So before I turn that over to Chris, there's just a couple things that I want to talk about that. We do know that there are 60,000 surviving spouses in MOAA. So we do understand that solo travel is an issue, but it's obviously an issue that is not limited to one sailing, right? If you're a solo traveler, then whenever you're looking to go on a cruise or a vacation or whatever, you have the same type of thing. So I'm just going to kind of go through on the signature groups. The single supplement is 200%. That's just the way it works out when we take the entire ship and how the pricing works out to that, because the price, basically we pay a price for the entire ship and then we break it out amongst the staterooms. So obviously if you have 75 staterooms, that if you were to price it for single occupancy, the price would be twice as expensive. That's just the way the math works on that. We do have a single share program we do on our groups. It works best on the signature groups because we have the whole ship, so we have a larger number of people going. We have 100, 150 people, whatever it might be, based upon the number of cabins on that sailing. So we do a single share program. The way that would work is we do both a female single share and a male single share. So if you are a solo traveling male, we can put you in a stateroom. You will pay half the double occupancy rate, so no single supplement. But since it's a single share, that would mean if another solo male MOAA member wanted to go on the trip, we would put them in your stateroom. So you may end up with a roommate, but you would end up only paying the double rate. So there would be no single supplement. We've had this we've had more women take us up on this than men. In fact, our very first signature group back in 2019, I think we paired up 3 or 4 cabins at least. And we had 2 sailings. So that would be on both of those sailings where we paired people up. And we have solo traveling female MOAA members who traveled together back in 2019 who continue to travel year after year. Because as I said, if you're a solo traveler, it's not a one-time issue when you travel. It is an ongoing issue, which is why when we do these webinars, the solo travelers always seem to be the first one to answer questions because it is an issue. It is a problem. The industry standard for cruises is the single supplement is 200%. I think the kind of this is going to come down to on the signature groups. If you're interested, give us a call. Drop us an email. This next slide actually has both our phone number and our email address, so you can reach out, get a cruise consultant, let them know it. To expand upon that, if it's not specifically, because one question was specifically about highlights of Eastern Europe, the other one didn't specify. Uniworld, like most cruise lines, do have occasional reduced single supplement shares. I looked real quick while Chris was talking. It looks like they have 2 sailings for holiday markets this year that have $0 single supplement or 0% single supplement. I'm sure I'll let Chris talk about this more when we talk about general. As I always mention, I'm not a travel agent, so I'm not the best one to answer these specific types of questions, but there are reduced single supplement opportunities, but they are going to be, specific sailing, specific departure dates that as if you're a solo traveler, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You know that your best bet if you're a solo traveler is, either find somebody to travel with, or if you want to travel solo, then you need to be very flexible because no one offers an across the board, 150% single supplement. To use that as an example, rather they will say these 12 sailings have a reduced single supplement. Chris, what would you like to say to expand upon my answer?
Yeah, so we have select sailings where the single supplement is waived. So that's their own landing page on the website. So we do have a broad range of itineraries dedicated to the solo traveler. And I actually could talk from experience. When my last sailing, I actually had a woman who, you're going to hear this correctly, she sailed with Uniworld solo 60 times. She was a widow, and I asked her, I said, why so many times? And she goes up the river, down the river, back. And she said, because she feels safe. And she just says she loves the product. She said, it's good food. I'm comfortable. So for those traveling solo, I would say we are the best people to have that experience with. So you have your own landing page. I'm sure if there's a specific sailing that you're really targeting, that with the dates really work for you, there are situations case by case where if MOAA reaches out to us, we could see what we could do to see if we can get that single supplement waived for specific sailings. No promises, but with Uniworld, we're just one big cozy family. So we will do our best to make everybody happy. So if there's specific sailing that MOAA reaches out to us saying they need the single supplement waived, I'm sure that there's something that we can do. but for the most part, there's a wide range of itineraries that are listed under the solo traveler where the single supplement is waived. And always pay attention to that 3-month mark before the sailing because they tend to waive the fee at that time.
Okay, 90 days out.
Yes, no guarantee, but just
Yeah.
from my observation, I think sometimes closer to sailing, they open up the opportunity to waive the single supplement.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. We've kind of seen that before. When you get closer in, there's a little bit more flexibility. Obviously, if you think of it from the cruise line, and this isn't just Uniworld, once again, this is everybody. But if you have a ship, let's say like the Joie de Vie, because that's the last signature group I was on when we did the 80th anniversary of Paris and Normandy, that ship has 64 staterooms. So if you take 64 staterooms, double occupancy is 128 people. Every single cabin is a reduction in the money that the cruise line receives from that. So let's just say that it's one set price and they charge, let's say 10,000 a person for 128 people. If suddenly you don't have 128 people, you only have 120 people because you have 8 single staterooms, that's a loss in revenue. Kind of what we're talking about is if we're 2-3 months prior to sailing and they still have 12 cabins available, they are better off putting one person in the stateroom and having that go at no single supplement or reduced single supplement instead of having that stateroom empty. But that's not the type of thing that you're going to see this far out. So I have one other question. I kind of tried to answer it. I'm just going to kind of just share it with you in case you have anything you want to say, Chris. Somebody asked, how do Uniworld distinguish itself from other providers such as Viking and Talk, referring offerings, pricing, and amenities? My answer was basically that as we typically don't ask cruise lines to kind of compare themselves to their competitors. Obviously, you think higher of Uniworld than either Talk or Viking, which is why you are working with Uniworld. We'd expect that. I shared that we've done webinars with both Viking and Talk. And if he wants to kind of do that kind of research on his own, he can watch this webinar, watch the other 2 webinars, and draw his own conclusions. My thought would be his best bet would be to call and speak to one of the agents here. And they would be able to kind of go through, kind of compare and contrast. We work with all 3 of those companies, so I don't want to really say anything. They're all partners. We have members who go on all 3 of them. They are, very popular lines. I can say that obviously when MOAA decides on who they want to use for the signature groups, they look at a lot of factors, price, amenities, those types of things. And his decision has been for the past 5 years. And when you look forward to 2025 and 2026, so in the future, that they have selected Uniworld. So that is kind of a tacit endorsement, I guess I would say, of Uniworld, because obviously when you're going in and you're saying we want an entire ship, any cruise company would say yes. There's also Avalon, there's AMA, there's Scenic. I could keep thinking of them if I kept thinking of all the different river cruise companies they are. And they're all a little different and all a little unique. I can tell you my experience on Uniworld has been phenomenal. They seem to fit right into that perfect niche for all MOAA members. We sell more Uniworld river cruises than any other river cruise line. So that kind of goes to the fact that MOAA members really enjoy the product. But when you combine Viking Ocean, Viking River, and Viking Expedition, we actually do more Viking than Uniworld. But once again, they have 3 different products. You got to combine them all. And then Talk, I put this in my answer, but they are kind of consider a more luxurious brand. A lot of it goes into it. I could kind of backtrack a little bit. Uniworld has more inclusive amenities than Viking, and then Talk is at a higher price point. They're going to have larger staterooms, more onboard amenities, higher crew to passenger ratio, all of those types of things. In cruising generally, You can use price as a guide that a less expensive line probably offers less and a more expensive line probably offers more. And a lot of that comes into personal preference, which is why I'm going to circle back around to one of the comments I said earlier. If you really want to compare and contrast products, then your best bet would be to call and talk to a cruise consultant because they work with all of them and they've had, I'm not a travel agent, but they have clients who've been on Viking, who've been on Uniworld, who've been on Talk, who've been on these other brands, and then they receive feedback from those clients, or they personally may have been on some of these different lines, and they can compare and contrast. But a long, long kind of prelude to this, but I didn't know, Chris, if you wanted to say anything to the question about kind of distinguish yourself from Talk and Viking, if there's anything you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, long story short, they're all my friends. I see them all. It's a big world, small industry.
It
So,
is a small industry, that's for
it's a
sure.
very small industry. You see, I run into people all the time. We all know our product very well, and it's all about what everyone qualifies for, and what that means is what's the best pick for you. For example, I will say Viking put river on the map. They really did. So we're very appreciative of Viking. But like I said earlier, when I began presentating, each we all sail the same rivers, but everyone's going to have a different experience on each different ship. So how we differentiate ourselves, Uniworld, and standing on our own is, and how we classify as the best is we include everything in a luxury way. So with Tauk and Viking, you're going to be nickeled and dimed, which works for them. So although from a price point it may look at the brochure face cheaper, you're going to make it up on the back end. So that's why I always start my speaking about that all-inclusive word amenity, meaning that everything's taken care of stateside. A lot of people leave the ship without a bill and zeroed out, and that's the way, and it's all luxury. So whether that comes from dining, alcohol, service, so that way it makes the vacation absolutely seamless. You can go on Viking and have a great time and go to a lot of the same ports, but you have a few espresso martinis and the glasses of Merlot, and then you're gonna,
there you go.
have to pay
Yeah,
that.
and I'm gonna one of the things you said about all inclusive is I'm gonna circle back to something I said earlier, which is the fact that we used to do $100 shipboard credit is kind of that was a negotiated deal with Uniworld. We went into Uniworld and said, hey, MOAA members, we would like to reward them for their past and their continued service. And Uniworld came back and said, yeah, we'll give you $100 onboard credit on any ship and any sailing. And I've been on a number of these signature groups kind of as the escort. I'm there, if you've been on a signature group with me or anybody from our company before, we're basically there just to make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible. Any issues, any concerns, anything you want, we are there to do it. And from that experience of talking to people live, as well as to these types of formats, we do 3 or 4 Uniworld webinars a year, and we've been doing that for years now. Is the feedback from people that they go and there isn't anything to spend that onboard credit on, and kind of my fallback on, like when I was on Paris and Normandy and this came up, is they have a gift shop, so you can go in and you can buy stuffed animals, necklaces, watches, they have a lot of stuff you can spend that money on, but a lot of people basically said they'd prefer to have an upfront discount, which is why starting January 1st, 2025, our MOAA exclusive amenity with Uniworld is going to switch from $100 onboard credit to $100 additional discount. So there is an amenity, but then there isn't that getting off the ship either without using your onboard credit or buying something that you really didn't want just because, it's $100 per person. So, me and my spouse have $200. We don't want to just leave that. So we end up, it's that buying something that probably didn't need, so to speak.
Yes, and you can also use that onboard credit to, for example, if you and your wife want to go use it at the spa or that master list of excursions I was telling you about. So that is another
I
option.
understand there are ways to use it, and yet,
Yes.
when I was on Paris and Normandy, we did 2 sailings, so we did back to back. We had the entire ship for both. So both of them were 100 plus people. So I did back-to-back groups with 100 people, and there were a good percentage of the people, say 15-20% of the people who didn't, go to the spa. They didn't do a
Yeah.
masterpiece collection. They didn't see the need to buy like an ultra premium liquor or whatever that might be.
Yes.
And so the question comes in, John, we have this $200. What can we use it on? And that's when I'm sitting there saying, have you seen the shop and what you can
Yeah. Yeah.
purchase? Okay. Lenny, I've been on River Cruise Lines and Uniworld Wow Me. They have a fantastic product. The other thing I was going to say, it's right there in their name, but it's Uniworld Boutique River Cruises. If you see the pictures or the videos, you can see why they call it boutique. It is like a boutique hotel. And a lot of the difference also comes down to personal preference. There are people when they go to, let's just say Paris. I go to Paris and I'm going to stay in a Marriott, and Marriotts are great. Other people want to stay in a boutique property type of thing. And so
Yeah.
some of that comes personal preference. Okay, done. How does all-inclusive work with the Egypt cruise? Heard that drinks are not inclusive. Yeah, if you go to the website for Egypt and the Splendors of the Nile, it's pretty clear on that website the difference between the all-inclusive drinks on that. Chris may want to talk about this more, but the drinks in Egypt are more in line with what you would see on like a Viking, which is beer and wine at lunch and dinner, if I know correctly. And that is dealing with what is allowed in Egypt. So that is a
Correct.
decision that's been taken out of Uniworld hands. So Egypt does not allow that kind of open bar kind of concept. So yeah, fantastic question, James. I'm glad you
Good
brought that
question.
up. I'll make sure that if we have a future webinar, we'll make sure to bring it up. But if you go to that website and look at it, and it talks about inclusions and everything, we made it as clear as we possibly could that sailing is different than the other. Chris, you want to add anything to that?
Yep. No, you said it perfectly. I'm really glad they brought that up. Yeah, it all has to do with the governments and things like that. I know it's moving toward a more positive direction where we could one day be where it reflects our mostly our European itineraries, but in destinations like India, Peru, and stuff, it's more of a charter concept. So it's and government regulation. So it's kind of a little bit out of our hands. But yes, it was more of an a la carte uh, vibe for the alcohol in the Egypt itinerary, but reasonably priced.
Okay. Bob said when I was on the cruise last year, they did try to have a happy hour with some drinks available. Um, I'm not sure what cruise you're talking about, Bob. I
That
don't
probably
think
isn't
they
a
have
realistic.
happy hours on Uniworld cruises because Uniworld cruises include all the drinks except what they call the ultra premium. So, um, I don't know if you want
If anything, that would be Egypt
to,
related.
Tosca. Okay. So, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So on Egypt, okay, then as I said, I
maybe I'm
apologize
not
for the
100%.
misinformation. Go ahead.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not 100% positive.
Okay.
It,
Well, that's excellent that they had happy hours.
yeah,
On Uniworld, every hour is a happy hour, right?
that is true.
So yeah.
That is true. And let me tell every sailing I've been on, all these people put me to shame, whether it's an activity or drinking. They don't go to bed. They're up at all hours. So that's why I love to say that, people who thought that river was slow paced, these people are up and at them and got a lot of walking. Our bike ride was 22 miles. I was in the back and I was the youngest one. And I was telling everybody, he's like, you all put me to shame. So it really does gear to a more active clientele. So it's nice. But it's a lot of fun for those of you who have been on a Uniworld sailing. Once you go, which it seems like a lot of the participants have, you get it. You get why people are so eager to book the next destination and while they're on the ship. It really is an amazing experience, and it's a good way to travel to leave the luggage in the room so you're not trekking everything. Because everyone knows going through Europe and city hopping via airport every other day is very aggravating moving the luggage. So it's a really nice way to see multiple countries and
Excellent.
multiple
Okay, so
cities.
Bob had one other comment. Each night they put out several special drinks, which were free to everyone. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, if hopefully it's drinks that you like. I mean, sometimes those happy hours are kind of thing. But that's great news. So anybody considering going on Egypt, the website will say that it's only because this is what we were told from Uniworld was that it only includes I think beer and wine at lunch and dinner. But if they are now doing happy hours and free drinks each evening and stuff like that, that is just one of those types of things where it's like, people get more than they expected, right? So.
Yes, I should have been in terms of more specific. So for our European itineraries, it's free range. Egypt
Yeah.
is like that little gray area in terms of the
Yeah.
alcohol component.
There you go. I don't know if you saw it. I like Bob's last comment where he says it's kind of like a buffet. Who doesn't want to go to a cocktail buffet?
Yeah.
So, all right, it is 3 o'clock, so our hour is up. We try not to run long. We obviously want to thank Chris for taking time out of his busy schedule and spending an hour with us. We actually spent more time than that putting this whole thing together. So want to thank him for his time. Just as a reminder, you're going to receive an email. It is going to include a link so you can rewatch or share this webinar with anyone you like to share it with. And it will also have a link to all 4 of the groups we talked about today. Once again, highlights of Eastern Europe and Burgundy and Provence are signature groups. We have the entire ship on those sailings, and MOAA leadership and staff will be on board. Interestingly enough, castles along the Rhine and Egypt and the Splendors of Nile have not yet been released on Uniworld's website. So actually on those, we currently can sell any of the staterooms on either of those sailings as well, because we are the only ones currently sailing those. In fact, when we set up our groups, we basically just held the entire ship. We will have that up until they kind of open those to the general public. So we kind of have like an advanced offering on both of those 2026 departures. So hope you can join us. You can see the number, you can see the email address. Please reach out. We have a lot of fantastic cruise consultants are here to answer any of the questions you have and get you pricing and those types of things. Just let them know what you're looking for, what's most important to you, and they can provide you all the information you need. My email address is john@moavac.com. I will include that in the email as well. But if anybody has questions, concerns, comments, or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me directly. And with that, I just want to thank everybody again. And Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you. Final word.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you guys so much for allowing me to speak about the itineraries today. Again, there's so much detail, so feel free to speak to your MOAA advisor for any additional questions about the itineraries and transfers and excursions. There really is a lot to see, so I suggest you get out there and get a move on.
Excellent. Hope to see everybody on board soon. Have a great day, and thanks for joining us. Bye.
Thank you.